Morning, everyone, and welcome to the UK Pavilion for Gender Day. And the fact that you've made it to the second week, I think you all deserve a medal. It's been quite a thing over these last few days, but thank you for being here, and particularly being here so early in the morning. We've got a fabulous panel. We're going to hear from all of them. But before we do that, could I have a big round of applause, please, for the panel? So we all know this, that gender is an absolutely critical part of any conversation on climate. And we also know, and I think we've got to keep saying this again and again and again until people understand that actually women and girls are significantly disproportionately impacted by climate change. And yet at the same time, you see them in the leadership positions to try and bring about change. I've had the privilege over the last couple of years to speak to many communities on the front line of climate change. So whether it's people in Nepal or Madagascar or Costa Rica, and you always see that discussion around the disproportionate impact and why we need to tackle it. So the fact that we're having this discussion today and the fact that we have Gender Day at this COP, I think is really important. And I hope that when people look back on the arc of our presidency and also when we took on the role of organizing COP26, people will feel that we've been pretty inclusive in the way we've run this, having gender inclusivity at the heart of what we have been doing as a team. And of course, we had an extensive program of events at our own Gender Day a year ago. We've agreed to the UNFCCC's Gender Action Plan at COP26. And during this year, we haven't just sort of sat on our laurels. We have driven implementation of that as well. And really importantly, we've tried to amplify the voices of women and girls throughout our presidency year as well. You will all know that we set up at the start of this process back in 2020 a civil society and youth advisory group. And that, of course, included the voices of women champions as well and young people throughout that particular discussion. And when we set it up, I know that a lot of people said, well, hang on a minute, this is just going to be one of those talking shops, and you just want to be able to say that you are listening to our voices. I hope 3 years on, people will feel that actually we did listen, and the way we planned COP26, the way we took forward the negotiations, we absolutely included those very vital voices as part of the discussion. And I think we've gone further as well, because what we've done is try to amplify that international leadership in the domestic work that we're also doing. So the UK's NDC, have a good look at the latest version. It's a very good read. And in the adaptation communication, we have addressed gender equality. We're a major donor on this agenda, including as a leading donor to Education Cannot Wait, which you know is a global fund for education emergencies. And we know that this fund actually has a positive and I would argue a disproportionately positive impact on girls as a result of the support that is being provided. But we know that the work is not complete. I mean, that's why we're here discussing this. If only it was complete, but it isn't. And we have to go a lot further and a lot faster. And of course, there's a lot of work that is being discussed today at COP27, the work that countries are doing, that companies are doing, that civil society is doing to deliver climate action with gender at its core. And I very much hope that we will hear some more tangible commitments that are being made today. So I think we want to continue to press on the implementation of the Gender Action Plan. We should also all continue to support the UN's Women's Feminist Action for Climate Justice Coalition, or FACJ. And the UK joined this grouping in 2021. And you know it's about championing women's and girls' climate leadership and also supporting access to finance for women and girls on the front line. For me, that's actually a very vital part of the conversation. Unless you're getting access to finance and that is actually reaching the ground, we're not going to solve this particular issue. And so, as far as we're concerned, this is very much an umbrella for collective action. So whether from the Equal by 30 campaign to reaching gender parity in the energy sector by 2030, to a pilot for gender transformative approaches to natural resource management, and support for inclusive disaster risk financing. I also want to thank Gender Equality for their transformational work on this initiative. And there is lots of good work going on in this field. You'll hear from the experts shortly. But I just want to say is that, you know, every COP, we all come together, thousands of people come together, we talk about these issues, you know, sometimes we announce progress, but this is something that has to be done every day, year in, year out, and we just need to keep that pressure on. And you will see the UK continue to do this during the next year, and I hope by the time we get to COP28, we will be able to report further progress. So thank you for coming this morning. I look forward to speaking to many of you over the next week. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go off to a UN-mandated event very shortly, but please have a great discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first event of the Gender Day at the UK Pavilion, focusing on gender-just climate leadership. This is my honor to moderate the intergenerational dialogue on the power of collective climate action. My name is Sophie Pouget, and I am the head of the Raja Foundation, which joined the Coalition on Feminist Action for Climate Justice as a commitment maker, with the target to fund for 1.5 million euros programs supporting feminist actions for climate change. So far, we've accomplished about 2/3 of this objective, and we reported. I am delighted to introduce you to 5 inspiring women. 3 of them are youth leaders within the Coalition on Feminist Action for Climate Justice. Please meet Joanita Babirie. Joanita, you are from Uganda, where you co-founded Girls for Climate Action, which is a youth-led organization promoting climate justice through climate education, leadership, research, and advocacy, while putting young women and girls at the forefront. Ana Rosa Cyrus. Ana Rosa, you are from Brazil, and you are the general coordinator of Engajamundo, an organization that was created after the UN Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio in 2012, and which vision is to make Brazilian youth aware about their socio-environmental impact. Aishka Najib. Aishka, you're originally from India, and you're based in the United Arab Emirates. You describe yourself as a MAPA activist, MAPA standing for Most Affected Peoples and Areas, and you represent Fridays for Future MAPA. There's one sentence that I love on your website and that we should all frame in our office. Supporting MAPA and fighting for an intersectional movement means hearing those who have been unheard and empowering those who have not yet dared to raise their voices. Also here with us today is Nupur Prakash. Nupur, you are from India, and you are a lawyer and a gender and law specialist at IDLO, the International Development Law Organization in The Hague, in the Netherlands. And last but not least, Esther Moiri Muiru. Esther, you're from Kenya, and you are the Global Advocacy Director of the Stand for Her Land campaign. The campaign complements the collective commitment on secure women land rights. Women land rights is pathway to solving critical challenges of food security, migration, environmental degradation, and overall social and economic injustice. So we have limited amount of time for this conversation, and I will be the timekeeper. And as a start, I would like to ask Joanita, Ana Rosa, and Aishka to explain what are your commitments and how all of you link gender equity and climate. And I also invite you to share briefly examples of your work and what you think are the priority actions that the international community should support. Joanita, would you like to start, please?
Thank you so much. My name is Joanita, just like Sophia said. We are very honored to be part of the Feminist Action for Climate Justice. I wouldn't want to go into the journey of getting there, but I think for us, being part of the Feminist Action for Climate Justice is being seen, right? Because as we are in our communities, I stay in Jinja, and this is the next city after Kampala, and it's in the eastern part of Uganda. This is where so many things happen, but also this is one of the places that provide the whole country with food, and so it feeds the country. And so being part of this is basically making sure that some of the girls that are in these communities are heard, and also their experiences are brought to the global stage. And so during the discussion on our commitments, we did a very extensive consultation, because for us it wasn't about what we know, but it was what they want to see as young women and girls. And so we made 3 concrete commitments. I'll discuss about the indicators, because I think it's one thing to set commitments, and it's the other to see that it's actually coming through. One of which was on advocacy, and we committed ourselves to train 500 young women and girls by 2026 to be able to get into policy making rooms and taking up positions, one in their communities, in the country, and also at the regional level as well. And so under this, we train young women and girls to be able to understand what is happening. One of which is actually just, what is climate change and how is it affecting you as a young girl, and sharing their experiences and realities. And it's from this that we even, I don't know if we make them angry, but we inspire to see that they can take action. And this is where the climate leadership program really comes in. And since we committed ourselves, we've so far trained 100 young women and girls. And for us, it's been a whole lot of things that get into this. And I'll just share our success on each of the commitments, because it all comes in handy. And so when I was coming for COP27, the girls organized the local conference of youth in Uganda, right? And this is where the document, the global the youth statement for youth in Uganda was then, put together. For us, we feel like this is success. It's not just training them, giving them the skills, but at the same time seeing how the people that we've trained, make sure that they actually have a tangible output. So this is a document that we are using to lobby in the different corridors when we get into decision-making spaces. The second one was on creating resilience in a way. I think all these commitments were basically resilience, but I think we got into a concrete commitment on training as many women as possible in green businesses. So this is what we are doing, is we have climate demonstration hubs in each of the communities, because we all have this conversation of women have indigenous knowledge, but how do we get the indigenous knowledge to mix with innovation, to mix with technology? And for us, and also, how do we create space for them to make sure that the information or the knowledge they have is important into the discussion? And so that is why we are having the climate demonstration hubs, to be able to come and share information, to get support, to be able to scale and replicate solutions everywhere, because this is needed everywhere. For example, in agriculture, in energy, it's basically them coming to say, this is what is going to work. Because when it comes to our country, or even Africa, resilience is a very important issue, right? And so how do we build resilience? How do we adapt? And this information is coming from these women and girls. And what we are doing is basically giving them the innovative, mindset of, this, but it can actually be scaled up and replicated. And so we committed ourselves to create 100 demonstration hubs in different communities by 2026. Most of the people said this was too ambitious, but we are getting there, right? 20 have already been established in the last 2 years for sure. the third commitment was access to finances. I think this was like a bigger commitment even for the entire Feminist Action for Climate Justice Coalition. And so this has been like the most difficult, to be honest, because even as an organization, we are struggling to get the finances. Now, where will we get the finances to actually invest in now what they have created from the climate demonstration hubs? As young people, we have the capacity, we have the technical, we can train them. But when it comes to now access to these finances to be able to scale and replicate, this is where now the challenge has been. And since we started, we have really just invested very little amounts of money. Our target is huge, but so far we've invested $450 US into the innovations that these women are creating. And for us, it's amazing to see that, you know, one initiative that is created by a team of 5 young women in these remote communities is actually being their source of income, right? Because I wouldn't say we all know, but in our community, when you go to say, hi, climate change actually is happening, they're going to tell you, for us, the most important issue, what we see happening is poverty, right? And so you want to take them off for 2 hours to tell them about climate change, but they are leaving their garden to come and attend your session for 2 hours. And these are things that we are not paying attention to beyond just doing a project and ending. There's the other thing of you are actually wasting their time. Like, they feel like you're wasting their time because it's not an urgent issue for them. Then how do we compensate for their time actually? Because for them, they know the bigger issue is poverty. So for us, what we're doing is, you are actually coming. We are coming together to make sure that we create green businesses that can, 1, save the planet, but 2, also save you as a person, income-wise, for sure. And they will come happily because you are building a business for them. And you're going to give them a small amount of money to be able to even start in case they cannot have the capacities to start. And this is what we are doing, and looking forward to how it can come out by 2026, looking forward to how many communities or how many women will just have financial independency. And for us, this is where the entire gender and climate actions that we are taking to kind of bridge the gap. Because for us, we feel if they become aware, if they know that they have the power, if they know that they have the solutions that the communities, the world is waiting for, then I think we shall get there. And it's basically just bridging this gap that is stopping them from getting there. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Juanita, and for reminding me that access to finance is key. Ana Rosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ana, and I am a writer of the Brazilian Without a Leader organization called Engaja Mundo. We are in the Generation Equality Forum's Feminist Action for Climate Justice in Action Coalition because of the partnership we have with Fridays for Future, most affected peoples in the areas. Together, Fridays for Future, MAPA, and Engaja Mundo made 6 commitments to the coalition. 2 of these are empower women and the different levels, and the amplify the voices of activists. We are implementing them through several of your projects, but today I wanted to highlight first our project, Rebuliço, that aims to access the permanence and the performance of your activists with your networking, giving them support for development and the collective construction. For this project, we opened 30 spots. 23 of 20 are filled by young women from 4 regions of Brazil, including of its Amazon states and the other regions. Most of them are indigenous, black, and from the LGBT plus community. All of this diversity creates odds that intersect in your fight for social and climate justice. We work across the three aspects for the development of your activists: education, mobilization, and participation. In addition to a small allowance, our activists are engaged in training and internal meeting for action plans, and this is so important for us because it is a space for construction. For these years in the elections, we make it and implement the where are they doubt on federal public policies. And one research initiative. According to the data we completed, since 2020, you doubt you haven't been part of the governmental plan, including for public policies aimed at the climate agenda. This product is very alien to the Generation Equality Global Acceleration Plan, especially when it comes to the second action point of the Feminist Action Coalition for Climate Justice in Blueprint. In this segment, the blueprint talks about the importance of family leadership, talking service delivery, discriminatory gender norms, and the importance of education. As a adult leader of the Feminist Action Coalition for Climate Justice, I also would like to be pointed out the importance of the intergenerational work. Because of this work with our fellow Action Coalition leaders and the community makers is so important for to be make other old. We are able to learn for 80 other and organize some beautiful projects, such as the Without Forum for the CSW in 66 and the other diversity discussions, like one held at in the Without Pavilion in the last week. And it is about the intersectional. And it's so many important for talking about your realities. In the coalition, we do a lot with very little resources. According to Generation Equality, with a launch at the UN General Assembly in September, the Feminist Action for Climate Justice has a $119 million gap in funding among the community makers who take participation in the report. Therefore, we needed our international community to step up, join the coalition, and financially support for activities of organizations like Fridays for Future and Engajamundo. But also other organizations too, in other regions, other realities. And we also need your current fellow committee makers, including the dozens of governments and the foundations, to join in collective dialogue between generations, collective dialogue about how to investment in yourselves as a coalition, in local projects, direct and executive by others committees. I believe it holds to be great with you. The civil, social, and the without leader organizations could be able for funds direct exclusive to become coalition members. We need you investing us in your products, in your vision for the future. We have a big capacity for body products like our schools a lot, but they are transformational and they lead to real change. Women, girls, and the non-binary people are leading the way. In our intention to have a feminist action, we have to empower local adults, especially for grassroots communities, safeguarding and are trained to be to leaders for fight for the climate justice. We need your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ana Rosa, for reminding us how we need an intergenerational and intersectional approach. Aishka, would you like to chime in?
I don't really. Is it connect? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I don't really know how to go after these two incredible women, but as Anna and Janita was mentioning, Fridays for Future MAPA, Most Affected People in Area, have joint commitments with both Engagemento and Girls for Climate, because we believed that if, especially, youth movements mobilized by many young women came together, it would be a revolution to be reckoned with. So starting off with Fridays for Future MAPA's commitment, I wanted to share with you one of our advocacy commitments, which with the Action Coalition, which is on creating spaces of collaboration. This commitment focuses on how, as youth climate movement, especially from the most affected regions, we can ensure internally as well as advocate externally for the facilitation of collaborative spaces for young women and girls in all their diversity, to ensure strengthening of their capacity, diversify knowledge and resources, and ensure the impact of their impact to change policies at different levels, including local level, national level, and international level, also focusing on having and bridging the dialogue gap between the global south and the global north. It's my incredible pleasure to share with you that Fridays for Future MAPA at this year's COP, 70% of our delegation are indigenous women. And we were only able to achieve this because we worked rigorously with multi-stakeholders coming from different sectors, pushing them to get us here in terms of accreditation, in terms of badges, and so much more. Additionally, our commitment reaffirms the call that was made at the SB 56 for the implementation of the Gender Action Plan on ensuring local, national, and international cohesion and collaboration to promote knowledge sharing on gathering and analyzing sex-disaggregated data and conducting gender analysis of policies, such as the Nationally Determined Contribution, NAPs, NCCPs, and so on. At the same time, it's also critical for us to push for synergies between programs, projects, and initiatives at different levels across sectors. As Fridays for Future MAPA, what we see as an emergency for the world to unite on is reparations. We believe that this COP is also a finance COP. Now more than ever, as both of these young, incredible women demonstrated to us, we are in front of solutions. We need to ensure their implementation. And for that, we need to enable multi-stakeholder collaborations across sectors to create decolonial, feminist mechanisms that ensure accessible, gender-responsive climate finance, including both adaptation funding and loss and damage funding. There has been little progress on the 2009 promise that was committed by many developed countries to mobilize $100 billion a year in climate finance for developing countries by 2020. So far, governments at this year's COP still have not been able to agree to how to functionalize this commitment. I don't want to lead into doomism, But I take a lot of honor and pleasure to be here at the UK Pavilion and talk about progress that has been made, particularly with UK's commitment to the UN Women Feminist Action for Climate Justice Action Coalition. It gives me a lot of encouragement knowing that the UK has committed to both policy, programmatic, as well as financial commitments with our action coalition, such as facilitating collaborative spaces to ensure working with international partners to address the barriers to accessing finance faced by local and national civil society organizations, and to deliver on gender-responsive climate finance. However, I believe that such collaborations, especially on these fronts, need to be followed up by accountability mechanisms. And these accountability mechanisms should be facilitated at a more holistic level. So my concluding message is that I hope that these commitments does not stay in silos, but rather they're taken up, followed up, reassessed, and translated into the negotiating rooms. And as you have invited a climate justice activist, I think it is a mandatory for me to conclude my intervention with a chant. And I would like to invite you all to join me. Is everyone in the room ready for it? Okay. So when I say, what do we want? You say loss and damage. And when I ask, when do we want it? You say now. Okay? What do we want?
Loss and damage.
What do we want?
Loss and damage.
When do we want it?
Now.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Aishka. And key words: accessible and gender-responsive climate finance and accountability mechanism. Now, Nupur and Esther, please let me ask you the same question. What does both your organizations are commitment makers in the coalition. So what does your organization do related to gender equity and climate? What is working on the ground? And what should the international community should support? Nupur, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Sophie. And I'd like to firstly applaud Anna and Jonita and Aishka for their incredible actions and the courage that they show in their work in climate activism. We know that these spaces are shrinking, especially for young women. And so I really applaud your work. Thank you also to the organizers for inviting IDLO to this rich discussion today. On the Gender Day at COP27, I want to begin by first acknowledging the critical role that the women's movement and feminist civil society, especially from the Global South, have played over the last 4 decades in ensuring that gender equality and human rights become central to intergovernmental processes on climate action. Incremental gains have been made in changing the picture of diversity and intersectionality in climate action. However, sadly, there is still a long way to go. I am Nupur Prakash, and I work for the International Development Law Organization, also known as IDLO. IDLO works to deliver people-centered justice solutions, improving access to justice and legal empowerment for communities, strengthening the capacity of justice institutions, and also reforming laws and policies. At IDLO, reducing the justice gap for women and girls is at the very core of our mandate, and we are proud to be commitment makers to the Generation Equality Action Coalition on Feminist Action for Climate Justice. Over the past week at this conference, we have heard diverse groups of women from various parts of the world come together to share solutions and their incredible wealth on how to tackle and respond to the climate crisis. Their experiences tell us firsthand that the impact on of climate change on women and girls, especially those on the front lines, is disproportionate and multifaceted, resulting in loss of livelihood, increased forms of gender-based violence, and also loss of essential resources and services. Gender stereotypes and social norms often relegate women to private spheres, which results in them being dependent on men in decisions related to finance, land, ownership, and resources. Discriminatory laws and policies and patriarchal institutions exclude them from land ownership, employment, and political representation. This results in a lack of control over vital resources and access to capital, which means that women are unable to influence, or it makes it harder for them to influence what to do with resources when it comes to adaptation and mitigation in climate action. Despite these heightened vulnerabilities, women and girls are at the forefront leading climate action, and it is our responsibility to intentionally listen, uplift their voices, promote their agency, and access to justice, climate justice, and finance, because not only do they represent the human face of this crisis, but it is also the right thing to do. Achieving climate resilience has to be designed in a way that not only works specifically towards preventing the erosion of gender equality, but actually works actively towards it. This is why at IDLO, we adopt an explicitly feminist approach to climate action based on the rule of law. We work towards legally empowering women in claiming environmental rights and actively participating in climate decision making. We support the development of gender responsive laws, and we build capacity of justice institutions. We also enhance women's land rights and access to natural resources, including engagement with customary and informal justice systems. Inspired by and in implementation of our commitments to the Generation Equality Action Coalition on FACJ, this year IDLO dedicated €500,000 of its own funds to support women leaders who are already driving climate action in their communities in the Philippines and Burkina Faso. In our work, we will be developing capacity of these women leaders in specific thematic areas related to climate justice, and also supporting them in sharing negotiating spaces on the table. To bring gender transformative change through gender responsive climate laws, we are conducting assessments of climate and environmental legislation through a gender lens. We're engaging with government ministries, bar associations, and law schools on integrating gender in developing and implementation of climate laws and policies. In our engagement with the Action Coalition, its diversity, as you see here, represents a broad spectrum of intergenerational voices and experiences, which has further enriched our understanding of climate solutions and actions, enabling cross-sectoral collaboration and design of well-informed climate policies and programs. Going forward, IDLO will continue to engage with various stakeholders across regions to identify effective rule of law approaches to address the impact of climate change for women and girls and their capacity to participate in decision making. We will continue to build towards identifying financial resources and collating with other partners to strengthen and deliver and scale up our generation equality commitments. As a lead commitment maker, IDLO urges the international community to take bold, concrete, and tangible actions in support of the FACJ Action Coalition, including on increasing the proportion of women in leadership positions in environmental governance, in working towards reducing barriers to women's land rights and access to natural resources, and also enhancing the capacity of women and girls in all their diversity in climate resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nupur. Thank you. Including gender in climate laws and policies. That's very important. Thank you. Esther, would you like to talk about us?
Thank you. Thank you. And is it working? Is it? And now? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm so delighted to be here. And I'm delighted because I'm representing work that most of you have talked about, working with grassroots women, working at the local level, and also, most important, working on securing women's land rights. And that's what I do every day of my life. And more important, because I'm sitting in a space where we are talking about Generation Equality Forum. And I have a special place in my heart with Generation Equality Forum. One, because it talks about 25 years after Beijing conference. What did we promise the women? What have we promised the women so far? What are we going to accelerate and make commitment on the promises that we have given to the women? And I am also sitting with young people. I was in Beijing when I was barely 25 years old. So to talk about intergenerational equality and panel, I'm very delighted. So what have we done and our contribution to the generation equality? First, we were part of the process from the onset, including defining the 6 commitments, the Action Coalition, and we have a commitment called Women's Land Rights Collective Commitment. And this collective commitment to secure 100 women's lands in the next 4 years within the period of generation equality. And this means that we have the capability to, and we are committed to secure 100 million land for families. Because once you secure land for women, you secure livelihood for the communities and for that particular family. And so I'm speaking on that level, but what have we done? So the Stand for Halal campaign, which is a global campaign, builds on that. It actually works to contribute and to implement partially that commitment. So the Stand for Halal campaign is a campaign that we started, and what we are doing is talking about closing the gap between the commitments we have, the standards we have, and implementation. So we all know that in our countries, in the countries that all over the world, we have very progressive laws on secure women land rights. There are not one single country where I have gone or I read a paper that discriminates women. In fact, they're so progressive. So what we are saying is Stand for Halal campaign, let's pause. Let's not write more new laws. Let's even stop reviewing laws. Let's implement what we are doing, what we have. And we are saying there is another part of it. Who have we been implementing with in the past? We have been implementing without grassroots women, with the women who do not have the security of tenure. So this campaign is about organizing massively grassroots women on the ground, working with movements of women human rights organizations in the country, and talking about working with the government, working with large government agencies, working with all development partners in our countries, and implementing what we already have, and it's progressive. But how do we do it? Because we can't do everything. So when Stand for Halal campaign goes to a country, we support grassroots women and supporting organizations to do in-depth background analysis of what laws exist, what norms and practices are there that are barriers to women's accessing land, and then they choose what they want to tackle in the next 4 years, and they make a collective strategy on what they will target. And this is what we've been doing. So far we are in Senegal, we are in Uganda, we are in Ethiopia, we are in Bangladesh, and we are in Colombia and Tanzania. We are hoping to really be a global campaign, and we are calling all of you to be part of this campaign, the Stand for Halal campaign. Now, why is securing women's land rights so critical? It's power. Land is power. We live off land. We build on land. We grow food on land. But who grows this food? Over 80% of our food is grown by women. Like what we feed on. But let me tell you, less than 2% of women in our countries own land. What happens when there is climate crisis? So the land is destroyed. A lot more times what our government they do is they do land use planning. And this land is taken for another area. What happens if the women, because the women don't own land, the land is taken off their hand. They are not the ones who are compensated. So we are talking about let's secure women's land who are also doing a lot of work on loss and damage. I came from Ethiopia before coming here. And I met this wonderful organized grassroots women movement. They've been working with Ethiopia government. They're getting 10,000 of acres, and they are getting degraded land. They are getting security of this land, and they are progressively and sustainably reclaiming this land. So when we talk about loss and damage, investing in grassroots women, in women to secure land and to deal with loss and damage, grassroots women know how to do it. Where is the gap? The gap is they are not with us. We are not courageous enough to put resources in the hands of the women. When I was in Ethiopia, we were able to meet the commissioner of Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. She told us, I want to be part of this Stand for Halal campaign. You know why? Because in the court today, majority of the cases that are coming to the court have to do with gender-based violence against women, and majority of these, the bottom line, it's about securing or taking away their assets, and majority of it on land rights. So when we are talking about securing women's land rights, it has a big nexus to economic justice, and I like to be speaking in this pavilion because the UK government is big about economic justice. But we want to see the UK government becoming a little more aggressive and more courageous to attack the issues of discrimination of women when it comes to land rights. We know that the nexus to do with GBV, it's critical. We cannot even talk a lot about issues of climate crisis. The nexus is graying on us. And we can also talk about what it means. Well, if we are not securing women's land rights, I can guarantee you that the generation equality, by 2026, we are not going to close the gender inequality gap completely. And by 2030, we are not going to achieve sustainable development. That's given. And secure women's land rights is the pathway for us to deal with all these things. And it's not rocket science. Please let's fund what works. All these women have talked about work that is happening on the grassroots level. In fact, if you talk about accountability, if you talk about taking $1 or £1 or €1, so far, give it to grassroots women, give it to girls on the ground, give it to young women on the ground, and you take us so far. So we are committed to securing 100 million women families land. We have figured that with these strategies that are coming, if we have $1 million in a country, we are able to sustainably secure 10,000 families in terms of dealing with climate crisis, with economic justice, with GBV. And so we are committed to this work. Please look at the Stand for Halal campaign. We are hosted by LADESA, and we work with the International Land Coalition, the Habitat for Humanity, the Right and Resource, the GLTN UN Habitat, and we have World Bank as a steering committee member of our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esther. Land is power, and women need land, and we need to invest massively in grassroots women. Let me open the floor to questions. We have 6 minutes, so if you have any questions, that's the moment.
Good morning. My name is Boris van Westering. I'm from Internews and the Earth Journalism Network, and I salute you. this is an all-women, seen too many all-male platforms the past week. And you represent the voice of grassroots women. They should be here much more. But you said we need more accountability. Voice. How can you, what is for you in your context the best strategy to amplify not only your voice, but the voice of those women you're working for? And what is the best strategy? Name me one about accountability, because accountability in this platform is all about lawyers, accountants, financial accountability around financial systems. All this extra money that disappears and evaporates from the women that need it, the women you were talking about. So accountability, what is accountability for you?
Esther, would you like to?
Take that because I've done accountability work with my government for the last 25 years, and I can only give from my own experience, and that is what I really am proud to be doing at the Stand for Halal campaign. One way of making sure the voice and the agency of grassroots women is invest in their organizing. You know, for people who live in poverty, their power is their collective voice. And women are already organized. So if you invest in them, one, to be able to do the kind of things that I have talked about, being able to sit down and grassroots women and reflect on what do their governments have on paper. Understand who are the duty bearers in their own communities. What are their responsibilities and grassroots women, and support them on a strategy to put all this together to drive demand for accountability. We have seen it in development of the plans because all our governments in the world are so decentralized. Getting the women to be part of planning, to be part of designing program, to be part of reviewing and monitoring those programs and evaluating. Those structures are already on our ground. The problem, and this is where accountability from a grassroots point of view sits, is that there isn't investment for them to do this work, even if the frameworks are there. And this is what the Stand for Halal campaign is pushing for. I feel very sad because I am here. We applied to have grassroots women with us. We had to really, we had even raised resources, but because we are coming to COP, we could not get them to be accredited. It is sad for us. And I think this is also an accountability process for UN system, that we need to open space for local communities to be here and give them preferential treatment. Even when some of us who are raising resources to be with them here, we can't still bring them here.
Thank you, Esther. Aishka.
I just want to quickly add to the point of accountability, especially within the Generation Equality Forum. We faced a lot of issues with accountability. And trust me, when I say that it was youth in all their diversity and adolescent girls who first brought in the terminology of accountability within the Generation Equality Forum. And as Action Coalition leaders, as National Gender Youth Advocates and other young and adolescent girls within Generation Equality Forum, we sat together and we co-wrote something called the Young Feminist Manifesto. And I would recommend everyone in this room to go check out the Young Feminist Manifesto today, because we talk about accountability, we talk about the different power structures that exist. And I just want to say that you cannot talk about accountability, you cannot be going around talking about effective collaboration or even the terminology transformative process without addressing the power dynamic and the unequal power structures that exist even within this very room. and also adding on to the accountability process, what Esther was saying, if young women and girls are not agenda setters, if they are not co-owners to the process, then that process has already failed. Nothing about us without us. That is accountability.
I think that's gonna be the final word. If there are any burning questions, maybe we can we need to leave the floor, but we can ask and discuss separately. Thank you very much. You are wonderful ladies, very inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing with us your work today.